transferring files from PC to the VAX, and using BITnet. We're going to cover various parts of all three documents, but most of them are made to be step-by-step to follow you along, so we're going to do kind of an intro, a general intro of these. The disk that you've been given is PIB term for the QX-16. There's other PIB terms available for the Zenith and the Equity. They all work the same way. They're auto boot disks. You put them in the left drive or the A drive, and then turn the machine on. They should boot in this room automatically to the VAX. Okay, so if you'll do that, put the disk in, turn the machine on, you should get the welcome to Drunevac message. If you note when you get onto the VAX, you're going to be told either that you're on node alpha or node beta. Okay, to use BITnet, you need an account on node beta. So is there anybody who has not applied for an account yet?
I'm on an alpha.
Okay.
I really need an account. I just don't know which it's on.
Do you know if it's an alpha or beta? Okay, would you check that?
Check it.
Let's take a look there.
Steve said he would look at it.
So if what happens is, when this comes up on the screen, if it says node alpha, just type in beta at the username prompt, and that'll get you over to the beta system.
Where did you get
Okay.
timeout?
Just hit return.
What if they don't have an account on beta? Are we using
If
something?
you don't have an account on beta, will you just look on with someone else for the class?
No way of going from alpha?
No, you need a separate account.
Separate account.
Correct.
They're separate machines, and beta's the only one that's on the network, the worldwide network.
I've got a bunch of files on my account on alpha.
You can send them.
You can just copy them back and forth. That's not a problem.
Yes, you can do that. Okay, so then when you get the beta, type in your username and your password, and you'll be logged in. You'll get the $sign prompt. Okay, is there anyone that doesn't have a $sign prompt in front of them? Good. Okay, good. First, a little about BITnet. BITnet was started about 7 or 8 years ago, originally by Yale and City University of New York. They were given the name BITnet. It stands for Because It's Time. And the two schools decided that it was time for there to be some kind of network linking colleges and universities. So they started this tiny little project, and it currently involves well over 1,000 schools directly connected to BITnet, and then several thousand schools connected by what we call gateways to other networks. And a gateway is very simply a piece of software at some school that connects BITnet to another network. For example, in Europe, the big network is UUCP, which is a Unix-based system. So by BITnet connecting to one place that can have both of those networks talk to each other, we can send mail to someone on UUCP, even though they may not be on BITnet.
University of Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, right. We can also send to ARPANET, which is originally formed by the Defense Agency. We can send to, well, then BITnet is connected to a European BITnet, which is called CERN, and through a Canadian network, which is called NetNorth. So all these things are things that you don't need to know about, but they're just there. And they all connect through BITnet, making connections to somewhere between 3,000 and 4,000 different schools and research centers possible. So we're going to talk a little bit about how to access those schools, how to figure out where people are and what names of places are, and what you can actually do with BITnet. First, BITnet is what's called a store and forward network. That means that Drew is connected to NJIT. That's the only place we're connected to. NJIT is then connected to City University of New York. City University is connected to 25 places, and each of those places is connected to other places. So in order for us to call a place like University of Montana, our message goes from here to NJIT to City University to somewhere to somewhere to somewhere to Montana, and it eventually gets there. If all of the systems between here and Montana are up at a given time, that message will go in under a minute. And you'll actually see a message on your screen that says, okay, your message is in NJIT, now your message is in New York City, now your message is in Montana. If the systems are down, that mail message will wait at the system before the one that's down. And when the system comes up, it'll go on from there. So that's why it's called store and forward. The things that won't work if the system is down between here and Montana is an interactive message. We'll talk about that in a minute, but the difference is when When you send something in mail, it'll be stored and forwarded when the system comes up. If you send using a send command, it will just drop off the face of the earth at whatever system is down. And you normally won't receive any message back saying it didn't get there. So if you're sending something to someone this way, be prepared for the fact that if you get no answer, it probably means it just fell off. And someone between here and there was not up. And we'll hopefully get to show you how to find out if all of the systems between here and there are up, so you can check that. The kinds of things that you can do on BITnet are send electronic mail, send files, meaning you can type something up in WordPerfect on your PC, upload it to the VAX, and send it to someone at another school. Either a paper, an article, or anything you'd like to send, even a letter. And you can also send commands. And those commands might include things like, what kind of system do you have? What are the names of people who are on your system right now? And you might want to do that if you want to find out something about the University of Montana. You can send a message, find out who's on, and then send mail to someone. Say, hi, I saw you were on, would you talk to me? So those are some of the things, and there's other ones too, which we're going to talk about. So the first thing that I want to show you how to do is to find out if our BITnet connection to NJIT is up. Okay, that will tell you if you can do any of these send commands. Because if ours isn't up, then the only thing you can do is mail. Now, NJIT is a big engineering school, and their computer goes down a lot. So we use a command called jmon. JMON, which sounds like something that someone in the Caribbean might say, jmon. But you just type in jmon, and it's going to tell you whether our connection to NJIT is up. But it says it in an odd way. Okay, if the state is connect, it means we're connected. If the state is not connected, it's active, but it's not connected. Okay, so the two words you can get here are connect or active. So connect means everything's fine. Active means everything's not fine. So if it's active, you can't use send commands. But you still can use mail, because your mail will be stored here until their link comes up. Now the next thing is, knowing anything about BITnet doesn't really help you if you don't know where you're sending to. Okay, you may say, I want to send to somebody at Boston University, but I don't know what they're called. Drew is called Drew, but NJIT is called Orion. Okay, so it would be hard to guess that NJIT is called Orion. Boston University has 5 or 6 different BITnet connections. So in order to figure that out, you can use a command called bitlook. And the format for that is just bitlook space, and then give it some word that you think might match to the school you're calling. So I'm going to just say bitlook Boston. And it doesn't matter whether you do capital or small letters. But this will give us any school that has an address or a name in Boston. There may be lots of these. Okay? Now if I look down this list, here's a bunch of Boston University ones. And now I can see which one is the one that I want to call. And I'd probably call the one that's Boston U, which is just the Academic Computer Center. You'll notice that the astronomy department has their own system in Boston U that has a connection to BITnet, and chemistry and engineering. So that's how you can find out the school you want to get to. When you want to send a message or a command on BITnet, you need to know 2 things. You need to know the school or the node. Okay, our node is called Drew, but Boston has several different nodes. Okay, Boston U is a node, and BUASTA is a node, etc. When you send either mail or a message, you send it to a combination of node, @person. Okay, and there are no spaces in there. So you need to know 2 things in order to be able to use BITnet, the node and the person. Well, now I know that the node I'm going to try is Boston U. If you don't know the person beforehand, you're going to have to find it out somehow. Now, one way is if it's a friend or a colleague, you can just call them or write them or get the information from them somehow. The other way is to query their system and find out who's on right now, and maybe someone that's on will be able to help you. And you can do that. So, I'm going to do that right now.
Wes,
Yeah.
when you say you need to know if the person is there, what do you mean? What their name
Their
name.
account name. Our account names are first letter of the first name plus last
Okay,
name.
so that's
But
not,
it, right, if you
not a
look at
standard.
Juan Migliori's name in Italy, it's that. It would be
Okay.
very difficult to figure that one out.
okay.
So, and lots of schools use numbers or combinations of names and numbers. Some use first names, some use last names. So every school is completely different on that. The one thing is you can't go above 8 characters. But other than that, school can do whatever they want for an account name. So what happened was, here's what I did. I had somebody that I went on a conference with who was in Sweden, and I did not know what his name was. So I started using these commands and tracing down what school he was at, what system he was on, and then I started asking people about the person, and they were able to give me his account name. And that's how I was able to get in touch. So you might end up having to do that. It's kind of investigative work. So let's see if I remember all the commands here. The first thing I'm going to do is send a message to Boston University and ask them who is on their system right now. So I'm going to use the send command, and that's one of these, and I'm going to send it to, now in this case I'm not sending it to a person at a school, I'm just sending it to a school or a node. So I'm going to send at Boston U, and I'm going to give it the command names. I want to find out who right now is on that system, the names of those people. So I'm just going to give it that command, and that's in your handout. So it's send at Boston U names. You're going to get a $sign back, and then it's going to go and send it from here to NJIT to CUNY and up to Boston, and back again. So it'll take 10 or 20 or 30 seconds, depending on how the systems are in between, whether they're busy or not, and whether everything's up. And I got an invalid command. Now this can happen sometimes, because I did the command wrong. It's send at Boston U. The command is cp query, and then names. Okay, so cp query says query the system, and then there's a bunch of options I can use, like name, or system, or active, or links, or all those kinds of
Indicate is a good one. It'll tell you if the
Indicate.
machine is up.
Okay, we'll do that one too. Okay, so now I'm getting a list of names on here. I want to stop it for a second. Now you can stop your screen from scrolling by pressing Control S, and then you can start it again with Control Q. So when you have a system like this, chances are there's a lot of names and it's going to scroll off the screen. So now we're getting this kind of cryptic list here, and we need to make some sense of it. If you look here, you've got something separated by a comma, something separated by a comma. So this looks to me like that's the person's name, and that's a connection. So chances are, and since there's a bunch of them similar, these look like account names to me, don't they? Can't tell, but that's all I know right now. So now that tells me that VP, what's that? What's that? Okay, now I know that BPT 00135 is someone on Boston's system. So I can send them a message and say, you know, I need some help. I'm trying to find John Doe in such and such a department. Would you happen to know where he is, or can you help me out? Now I'm going to just let this scroll, and you can see on a system like this, there's quite a few people logged in. So we'll just have to wait for it to stop.
These are just people who are logged in at the moment?
At the moment, there's no way in BITnet to get a list of who has accounts at a school. You can only tell who is on at a given time. Okay, so it looks like this command is finished. Okay. So now a thing that Drew said we might want to try is send at Boston U, cp query, indicate. Okay, an indicate is just a command that tells us if their system is up or not.
I got the list.
Oh, okay. Okay, so this saying that, what is this saying now? It says a whole bunch of stuff, but essentially because you got an answer, it means the system's up.
That's an IBM mainframe, so it's going to tell you a lot of stuff about how many people are logged on and the load on the system at the time. Not very exciting stuff.
If you don't get an answer?
If you don't get an answer, it means the system's down. Okay, let's try it with another school. Somebody give me a school we want to find.
Oxford.
What's What's that, Hofstra? Okay, well, let's do BitLook Hofstra.
What if the school's not in BitNet, it just won't work?
You won't get anything. There are something like 20 or 30 new schools signing up every month, so that in a very short time, any fairly substantial school is going to be on it. Okay, so Hofstra's not there. Oh well. Linda, you have one?
Memphis State.
Memphis?
State University.
Yeah,
If it's not active, you get that message back. That just means it's not up at this point.
correct. Okay, so now we're looking for Memphis. And we're going to find any schools. This will actually give us any schools that are in Memphis. Okay, so there we've got Memphis State Academic Computer Center. Okay, so now we've got our Memphis State, and we can check into Memphis. Yes?
Okay, when I tried to send at MSU ACS CB query names, then I got link MSU ACS is not defined.
Not what?
Defined.
Okay, that means that it's probably a new school that's just gotten on, and it's not in somebody's routing table between here and there. What, the command that you typed in, what did you put in for the school name?
MSU ACS, which was on right there.
Okay, that means that somewhere along the way, that school has not been defined yet in someone's routing table. Maybe ours, maybe not, but actually this is our routing table that it's looking through. So it is defined here. It's just that somewhere along the way, it hasn't been set up. Now, let's see. So now we have our person, for example, at Boston University, and we want to find out if somebody's there that we know. So the command to do that is send. We're going to use a send command because we don't want to send electronic mail. We want to get to this person while they're logged on their terminal. So we're going to say send space BT, and I'm just going to make this up because I don't remember. 0035 at Boston U. Okay, so my command is send to a person at a node. Did I get this wrong? Yes, I did. Okay, and you look, if I do that command, what it's going to come back with is a prompt that says, okay, you're now in touch with this person at Boston University. Whatever I type in now, when I hit return, it's going to go to Boston University to that person. They will have to do a similar kind of command to get in touch with me. So they'll have to say send L. Lloyd at Drew, hit return, and they'll get the same kind of prompt.
Your name will show up on their screen.
What's that?
Your name will show up on their screen.
Correct, just like this. Okay, but I don't want to send them anything right now because we'll bombard them with all these people. So this is how you do it. To get out of it, you just hit return on a blank line. Okay, so I didn't put anything in. When I hit return, it'll go to the $sign.
Do you have to tell them your name? Or
They're going to see it on their screen.
It'll say
Yeah.
from.
Yes, it will come up on their screen
You could do
who
that
it's from
to
and what
left
node
right now
they're from.
locally.
But it'll come from them
Just so I
with
can
the
see on the
cryptic,
screen.
what their name is.
Okay, we're sending, this is their name.
What?
No, what
Yeah,
is it
do
going
it.
to tell us about us? Is it going to say L. Lloyd?
From them, it's going to say Drew in brackets, L. Lloyd.
So if we can get messages from someone with some kind of ICIN like
Right.
Lons was from Italy and not know who they are.
Correct. You will not know their name, their actual name. That's
Unless
correct.
they tell you somewhere in the message.
That's right. Yes, you can do all kinds of anonymous things.
Here, Les, I'll do it to you. Let's see. You should have something saying that I'm on your screen.
Okay. So this is how we send a message to a person who was logged on at the same time we were. Another thing we can do when a person is logged on at the same time we are is send a file. And the command there is same as that, send/file person at node. That file is a file that's on your VAX account. So that if you took a WordPerfect file, you would put it on your VAX account, and then you could send/file, give it the file name, and the send/file name.
It'll prompt you for the file, I believe.
I got a message from Steve. Thank you, Steve. Okay, so send/file, it asks for the file name, and list, and it asks who I want to send it to. Now you can do it like this and wait for it to prompt, or you can just say send/file, space file name, space person at node. Or you can let it prompt you like that. So I'm going to send it to Linda Lesniak, and L. Lesniak at Drew. So I can send something to someone at Drew just as easy as I can to someone at another school. If I do send something to someone at another school, on the screen will be information about where that file is at any given time. Why don't we do one of them just so you can see. See if that works. And then I'll tell you what I did. Okay, so now I'm sending a file to, again, that name, MATS, is a person at node. But I've defined that as to be this whole address. In other words, I send mail to this person a lot, and I don't want to have to keep typing it in. So at the $sign prompt on my VAX account, I give it a command and I say define, and I give it a name, any name I want, space, 3 sets of double quotes with no spaces, and then person at node, and 3 sets of double quotes. Once I do that, I can then use this name instead of typing out that whole long thing. If it's someone that you're going to send to a lot of times, not just today, you need to put that command in your login.com. For those of you that aren't familiar with that, you can ask at the aid station on how to get something in your login.com file. If you know how to do it, put the define statement in your login.com, and that way, every time you log on, you'll still have that name defined for you. Okay, here. So I finally got a message back. It says it's sent from Drew to Orion, and it's going to CERNVAX. And if you remember before, CERNVAX is the European connection to BITnet. So now my message, my file is at NJIT. And it's going to keep coming up with these messages until it actually gets to CERNVAX. So it's going to go to CUNY, and then I think it goes directly to CERNVAX, and that'll be it. But yesterday I sent a message to Potsdam State College in New York, and I got about 10 messages on the screen, because it goes through all these state schools as it gets up the state of New York. So you'll get the information about where your file is. And that way you can also tell if the person gets it right away when you do send/file that way. Questions so far?
That max is just a symbol, right? Just
That happens to be the person's name, but you can make that anything you want.
Just watch.
Yep.
Is this only if they're using it now, or is this like, this is just sending the
Okay,
file like
send/file you can do even if they're not on right now. But it's the send at
Right.
that only works if they're on. Okay, so now it says it went from NJIT to CUNY and then from CUNY to CERNVAX. So now it's over in Europe, and the European computer is going to send it off to Sweden. Okay, it takes this name. You'll notice there's a UUCP in there. This connection happens to be on that other network called UUCP. So it goes to a gateway, some other computer that takes this command and sends it up to the computer called cooling, and then this person at that computer. So again, something that you don't need to be familiar with how it's doing it, but it's doing it. Okay, probably the most common thing you'll use is regular electronic mail to send someone a message. So if you type in the mail command, you'll go into mail. And what you're going to want to do is send someone a message. So we'll just type in send. And it prompts you for who do you want to send the message to. When you're using a standard BITnet type address, like so-and-so at so-and-so, the format to send someone a message is BITnet %, and then that whole thing in quotes. Okay, so it's BITnet %, and I'll just send Pam a message. So BITnet %, and then person's name at the location. And then you're in electronic mail just as if you were writing to someone here at Drew. So you'll be prompted to give a subject, and then you'll enter your mail message. For those of you who aren't familiar with electronic mail, it's a little different from a word processor in that it doesn't word wrap by itself. You need to press return at the end of a line. If you forget and don't press return, if you enter more than 300 characters, it's going to cut you off and end the message. It's going to say too long. So just make sure you hit return at the end of the line. And so I'll send some message to Pam, some gobbledygook, and do Control-Z to finish. And Pam is now going to get a message from me. But if Pam were in Alaska, she would get the same message just a couple of minutes later.
No, I didn't. So, basically.
When you get a message from someone in BITnet, it's going to look to you the same way as if it were from someone at Drew. Okay, you're going to get a prompt on the screen that says you have one new mail message. To read it, you do just the same thing you would do if it's a new message here, and type read or read/new, and you'll read the message. And the person's address at the top is going to look like this. Okay? And you can reply to that person or forward to that person or anything you want, just as if that person were here. You just need to use the BITnet % before the person's name. Now, there are ways, as I said, these gateways that go to other networks that are a little more complicated, and you can't just use this command. So in general, if the person's account name is not simply so-and-so at so-and-so, then you're going to use something else instead of mail. It's very similar, and it's called Gmail. Okay, and that stands for gateway mail. And gateways are connections to other kinds of computer systems. So you're going to get the same kinds of prompts, except they're going to be prefaced by a G, so that you know you're in gateway mail instead of mail. Now it's going to prompt me. And I'm just going to say send again. Now when you're in gateway mail, you don't need to say BITnet %. You don't need the quotes, because it knows you only use gateway mail for BITnet. You can put it in if you want, though, if you want to just not remember that there's differences between the two. If I go and send to this person now, Gmail will take this apart, see that it's UUCP, see that it's at CERNVAX, and go and separate it and make sure that this message gets where it's supposed to go. In addition, when you send anything using Gmail, you always get a copy back for yourself. So I would just type in this whole long thing. Now, this particular person's address happens to work in regular mail. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. So the general rule is, if it's not something simple like this, use Gmail. Some of the things you might see in there are UUCP, ARPA, EDU, etc. Okay, this is another example. This is someone who graduated from Drew 2 years ago and is now at RPI. So they are connected by, which network is EDU? Is this CSNet?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, this is a network called CSNet, Computer Science Net. And so in order to get to Dave McIntyre, we have to use Gmail. And we just give it this whole long command. And it sends the message to him and then sends us a copy. Well, send you a copy when you send it out. That's just what Gmail does. Okay, questions? Okay, what I'd like everybody to do now is to pick a school somewhere that they'd like to communicate with. Find out the name of the school, find out the node you want to call, And then I'd like you to send it a names command and find out who is logged on right now. You can also try indicate, and another one that's kind of nice, which will work if it's a VAX only, is finger. So you would send at Boston U finger, and that will tell you not only who is on the system, but what they're doing. But it only works through a VAX system. If it doesn't work, it'll come back and say invalid command or something like that. Another command you can do is help. Okay, so you can say send at Alaska help, and it'll come back and tell you, okay, this is how you use our BITnet system. These are the valid commands, and if you resubmit the command and say send at Alaska help finger, it'll tell you what the finger command does. So what I'd like you to do is find a school somewhere that you'd like to try communicating with and send them a command or two. Find a user you'd like to try and get in touch with and send them a command. I'm just going to have you play around with that, and I'm going to say a couple of other things while you're
What
doing
if
it.
the school you're looking at is something like University of South Carolina? You
Mhm.
put in 2 words, South space Carolina,
I would put in Carolina only,
whatever the most specific.
or CAR, because it's probably not written out in full South Carolina. So you might have to play around with it in a case like that. Don't use university.
Orion's not up?
Diagonal.
They go up and down. They'll be up in 30 seconds.
No, now Orion just went down. I asked them to try and stay up from 12 to 1, but they just went down. So now you can't do that command. You can do bit look, you can find out where you want to go, but you're not going to be able to go there right now. Now let's just see what happens here. In the meantime, BITnet does have a couple of restrictions. And those are, BITnet is not to be used for business at all. That jeopardizes our BITnet license and all that, and would certainly jeopardize your use of the system. So BITnet is strictly an academic use system. Second is when you send files, you cannot send files that are larger than 300K. So roughly 1 floppy disk at a time. You can't send more than 1 disk in a file that is 1 disk. What you have to remember is that every time you send a file, it goes through all these systems on the way and takes up disk space on all these systems. So if you go and send something long, the longer it is, the slower it's going to take to get there. Plus the fact that if someone on the system is low on disk space, they're going to delete the BITnet stuff first, if that should happen to be an issue. So don't send disks and disks full of things at once. If you're going to send a file, fine. And a 100-page paper is not going to be anywhere near 300K, so it's something that we shouldn't have to worry about. What it really references is people doing large amounts of data, like sending a large SPSS file. People might get upset at that. Though if you do it at night, you'll certainly have much less contention than during the day. And the other thing is, BITnet isn't there for playing. Now, I just explained how you can get in touch with someone at another school and find out someone's name and whatever. But that person may not want to be playing with you at that particular time. So they may just say, not now, go away, and it's your responsibility to go away. You can find someone else to try. So just be careful on that. If someone's doing research on a large system in a large school, they may have limited time on their computer, and they don't want to be communicating on BITnet. I don't think anybody here has had that experience. I think that we have all connected with people who have been very happy to talk to someone in another state or another country. And it's a very exciting thing to do. You just do need to respect the fact that these people may be doing academic work and they don't want to be bothering at the present time. So those are really the 3 rules. And the common sense ones like no profanity and all that. What else do you have there? Okay, what questions do you have?
Well, you have a long list. You said Control S like stops the scroll.
Yes,
What about
Control Q starts it.
Q? Okay.
Yeah. Now, if you'd like to practice the commands, since we can't get to NJIT right now, you can practice the commands using Drew. Okay, so you can send something to @Drew, CP query indicate, or names, or finger. Do we have finger yet?
Yep. will work just like show users at this
Okay.
point.
So you can try out those commands on our node now. That way if you have questions, you can ask them, and then when the network comes back up, you can try it out.
Could you please go over what happens when you receive a file?
Okay, when you receive, that's a good question. Okay, now we talked about receiving mail messages. Okay, and that you'll see when you log in, it'll say you have one new mail message. When you receive a file, meaning someone sent you something with send/file, when you log on, you'll get a message that says, type receive to receive one new network file, or 2 or 12. Now, receive can be used several different ways. The way I use it is I just say receive space asterisk. And any files that come in will just be added to my account. And then I'll go look at them. For those of you that are familiar with accounts and subdirectories and all, I have a subdirectory in my account which is just for received files. So that when I receive things, they don't go in with all these other things and then I may not find them for days. So I create a different directory to use to receive files. I receive them, do what I want with them, and clear the directory so that it's always separate. As a matter of fact, we can probably even do one of those right now. Receive. Okay, so okay, so I'm now going to my receive directory, and I have 3 new files to receive. Now there's a couple of ways you can use receive. One of them is to just type in the word receive, and you'll get to a receive prompt, which has, I believe, help and all that in it. So this is telling me what has come in for me. And these are files, 3 files received from SUNY at Potsdam, and they happen to be documentation files. And also says how long they are. So 2 ways I can receive the files are either at the $ to say receive asterisk, or at my receive prompt I can just say asterisk. I can't say, I have to say receive asterisk?
Yeah, I have to say it again.
Okay. And it'll tell me that these files are now coming onto my account. Okay, so it copies the first file, and it'll do the same thing for the other 2. Once those files are on my account, I can look at them on the VAX editor, or I can download them to the PC. What I want to do now is just talk briefly about going from the PC to the VAX. You've got a handout on that, and it really does take you through step by step. So I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but just outline. Copy. Okay, so I've now received my files, and I'm going to exit out of it. Now, to receive or send files to or from the VAX, you're going to use a program on the VAX called Kermit. And Kermit is a public domain file transfer program, which means that we got it for free. Okay, so I type in Kermit, and to receive a file or to do anything, I'm going to type set file type binary and server. These are just commands that Kermit needs to know that we're going to be doing an exchange. Doesn't matter, you don't have to know what they do, just type them in. Okay, then if you look at the sheet, you're going to do 2 different things if you're receiving or sending files. Now the first thing we have to do in either case is hit Alt-F and tell it that I want to use drive B. So we do a logged drive change, L, and it says my current log drive is A, I want to do B, so I type in B. This means that when I send or receive data from my PC to the VAX or back, it's going to do it and look for that data on drive B, or it's going to put it on drive B if I'm taking it from the VAX. And now I can either go to or from the VAX using Alt-S for sending a file to the VAX, or Alt-R for receiving a file from the VAX. So either one will work fine. Why don't I just try Alt-S? They're very similar. So I'm going to do Alt-S. No, I'm not. Oh, I think I hit the wrong key, didn't I? Okay, I'm still in Kermit, and I'm going to do Alt-S. And I'm going to choose option D for Kermit and I'm going to select a binary file. Now there's two different kinds of files you can do, either text or binary. The only time you're going to do text is not if it's a WordPerfect, well, if it's just a WordPerfect file. But that means that that WordPerfect file was saved as an ASCII text file. Okay, if you're not familiar with that, it means it wasn't saved as an ASCII text file. Or if you're sending a VAX programming file back to the PC or up to the PC, then it's just a text file. But anything else is a binary file. That means that it's got control characters in it, some special characters aside from just letters and numbers. If you take a WordPerfect file from your PC and you want to send it to someone at another school in WordPerfect format, then it's going to have control characters in it. So you're going to want to use binary. So we almost always use binary. So I'm just going to choose B and take the file to send, and we'll do that BITnet. BITnet.list. Probably won't find it. Didn't find it. But anyway, that's how you would do it. And when it found it, it would tell you that it was sending it some number of bytes at a time until it was finished. So you just get some status on the screen, and when it finished, you would get this back.
Where is it, in your account then, on the back?
Correct.
It's in your account.
It's in your account or on your floppy disk drive if you're receiving it from the VAX. Right. Okay, so after it's done, you choose quit, and then whether you've received or sent files, you're going to do Alt S again. And Kermit and log out server and quit. And that combination should get you out of Kermit, except that I pressed the wrong key. So we're just going to make believe that I got out of Kermit.
Did you hit return there?
Yes, I did. I've heard of somebody else having this problem too. Anyway, that's how we would get out of it, and we'd be back at the $.com if all worked correctly. So in that case, I had just sent a file from the PC to the VAX. And it works very similar if I would have received a file from the VAX. See if it'll let me out this time.
Let's give you the message I got this morning.
Okay.
Control Y should
Where it
give you
gives you the
Jim?
jaws are going to be just, I have no problem. I think this control should get out.
And any of these things, if for some reason you're into it, and then you don't want to do that. I mean, it says file to send, and you say, wait a minute, I really don't want to send that file. You change your mind. What's the route?
You can hit escape.
Escape.
Escape, it may take a few seconds before it gets the command because it's in the middle of sending a piece of data. But once it gets to the end of that piece of data, it will stop it, say escape press, and you'll just go back through the menus. What you'll do is, if you were sending a file, that'll bring you back to the same Alt-D menu, and then you'll follow the directions to log out and quit.
But you say one to anywhere, if I start to send a message to you, and I said, no, I don't do that.
Okay, in those cases, this was just for Kermit. If you're in Mail or Gmail, you can do Control-C.
Okay.
That'll just get you right out. Okay, what other questions do you have?
Control Y should get you out of that mess a couple times.
Has anyone run JMon and see if
Yes.
NJFT's back up? Okay, it's not yet. Yes.
So when we receive messages, are they saved or do you have to
Okay.
delete them or?
When you are reading your mail, and this goes for mail at Drew in addition to BITnet mail, after you read a message, if it's just chatter, what you want to do is hit D and return for delete. If you don't delete it, it will stay on your account. Everyone at Drew has a limited amount of space on their account, and once it gets filled up, unless you've got a big file in there for a class or something, you're going to be told you have to go back and delete it. It's much easier to delete your files as you read them than to go back when you have 1,000 mail messages and have to pick out the ones that don't belong. We've had people experienced that.
Is there a approximation of like, how much room is on there?
Okay, you can always find out how much space is on your disk by just doing show quota at the dollar sign. That'll tell you how much you have allocated total and how much is left. Are there other questions?
Wow. 1984 mail.
Al?
Is there any particular way we can find out the names of newsletters and things like that? That we
Okay.
receive?
We do get a monthly newsletter, both from BITnet and from BITnet, which are two organizations that have to do with BITnet. And they regularly list those subscriptions. They are in a folder at the aid station. They're in a loose leaf. I think by now they are probably very nicely labeled by month with little separators. Drew was taking care of that. So I'm sure that's all done, but if not, I would guess it will be done very shortly.
Could be.
Anyway, they're there. Each month we get a newsletter. The newsletter last month had information on different things you can subscribe to. A subscription is just a piece of software at a school. And what it does is, for example, there's a subscription on IBM PCs. If you subscribe to it about 3 times a week, you get messages from people who have asked questions of the IBM PC journal. And other people write in and answer it. Someone takes all those messages and puts them into a little question and answer thing and sends it to everyone who has subscribed. And that's all done automatically. If you subscribe 3 times, you get 3 copies. I found that I subscribe to a bunch of things and they come so often that I don't get to read any of them. So I just look at them and delete them. But there are subscriptions on dozens and dozens of topics, ranging from IBMs and VAXs to someone yesterday found a subscription based on the Grateful Dead.
I wonder who that was.
Actually, it was Tom.
Oh,
And
really?
it includes a database of every song they've ever written. What other questions do you have?
I didn't really work again.
It's send at node, CP query space, and then names, system, indicate, etc.
How do we go about using this? You just load in PipDrive?
Just load in PipTerm, or you can use the terminals in room 5, either way. Just, all you have to do is what you do now, get onto your beta account, and same commands. Yeah.
How do we get out of this?
How do we get out where we're stuck? Well, I think we're just going to have to turn the machines off and have
I
somebody
just
log
stopped
us out.
you.
You just stopped me? Did you stop first too?
What's your name?
I'm not stopped, or you stopped the wrong name.
Oh well.
I mean,
There were 2 of you.
Deleted files.
Jim?
I'm sorry.
You say you just turn the machine off. I know there are times when if you call it the VAX and then you
What's
didn't
your
log
name?
out right, you cause all sorts of havoc down this way.
But you want to always make sure that you log out, that you type in LO.
We were just talking about turning the machine off. and you hung
That's
up.
because, yeah, we're stuck and Drew is logging us off from another terminal. So
Oh,
if you're
okay.
stuck,
You
tell
should be
Drew
on
and he'll
site.
log you off. The reason you don't
Should be
ever
on
want to leave your terminal logged on is if someone else comes down to the same spot, they can then do all kinds of things
I'm
to your
fine.
account.
No, you just hit LO.
Oh, just hit return.
Yes, at $1.
And you have 2 different like mails. One would be for your beta account, one's for your.
Correct. That's right. Now, you can send mail from alpha to beta. If you know someone on alpha, you can send mail to alpha : : and then their file, their account name.
Well, if someone was sending, okay, someone was using the BITnet, it would go to beta.
It goes to
since
beta, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay, if you'd like to spend a couple of moments trying some more commands, you can do that. Otherwise, thank you for coming.
Thank you, Les. Very much.
What? I think you're okay. Just hit return.
But I have some things you might